What if a pub could change the world? And what if a spirit could save a forest? Welcome to Funny Old World, our podcast where sustainability heroes share big ideas in small bites. Today I'm sitting down with Geetie Singh-Watson at the Bull in Totnes in Devon, having opened the world's first certified organic pub back in London in 1998. She definitely knows a little bit about food systems. And Ed Faulkner, founder of Sapling Spirits, a drinks brand with nature-based solutions very much at the heart of their brand. This special episode is brought to you by The Long Run. Let's get into it. Geetie, what's giving you hope? What's giving you hope?
I think what's really given me the most hope is the people I meet who are so engaged with environmentalism, nature, farming. I mean, one of the most extraordinary things was when I was on the London Food Board about 20 years ago, I think, one of the big topics was all the farmers are really old and they're going to die out and no one wants to go into farming. And that has completely changed. It's extraordinary. I mean, we have a waiting list for pickers here on our farm. We have a 150-acre farm in Devon, and we have a waiting list of young people wanting to come and pick. It's extraordinary. I was talking to my neighbour farmer the other day and he was saying it's the same. He has no problem recruiting young people. I mean, not necessarily the best workers, but you can get them there. It takes a bit of time. That is a sea change. It's very exciting. And they want to have their hands in the ground. They want to be learning how to grow. They want to engage with nature. I think partly as a future prevention. You know what I mean? So that they're prepared for how they're going to feed themselves, because they are scared as well. And so they want to take some control of it. I think that's very exciting.
Definitely. Thank you so much. Ed, what is a big challenge that right now is urgent in your world?
I think the biggest challenge in my world, which is on a kind of micro level spirits, but on a broader level food and drink and consumer goods in general, is that people don't really understand that all consumer goods are agricultural. Whether you're buying a vodka or you're buying vegetables or you're buying a hoodie, everything has an agricultural process behind it. And if people don't understand the agricultural processes behind the things they're buying, it's very hard for them to make informed decisions. So the agricultural process behind what we make is grain. So we use organic and regenerative wheat from around Europe. The problem we've got is over 30% of the world's farmland is degraded, and that's a number that's increasing every year. And despite all of the awareness around organic farming and around regenerative farming, the level that it's being adopted is far, far too low. 1% of America's farmland is organic, less than 3% or maybe less than 4% of the UK's farmland is organic. So I think that the problem is converting awareness into action. And I think the solution to that is policy. We've seen all over the world examples where good, radical government policy can change people's behavior very, very quickly. Because at the end of the day, all of these problems become a behavioral change problem. Because whether it's a farmer changing their behavior with how they farm their land, or someone walking into a shop and deciding to buy something different, it's about how can we encourage people to change their behavior. I always like to use the example of when they put in a plastic bag tax, which seems incredibly mundane, but they managed to reduce the amount of plastic bags used by 95% overnight by putting in a 5 or 10p tax. If you can economically incentivize farmers to change the way that they farm, and then in doing so make organic and regenerative products a lot cheaper, it's going to encourage pretty quick behavior change. And so I think that the policy side of things is definitely a solution. And then that obviously with solutions brings up more problems, is how do we then encourage policymakers to implement policies that have good long-term outcomes for people all over the world in terms of both the health and nutrients and what they're consuming, and also the incredibly important thing of how much they're spending on that, because if things are more expensive, at the end of the day, we know it's not to be mass adopted.
The government's policy around elms was actually really good in the environmental land use, and they funded farmers to plant trees, to, increase their hedgerows. I mean, there was a lot of crap in there as well. There was a lot of bad behavior that shouldn't have happened, just manic tree planting. But the change in the countryside around here is phenomenal. More hedges, more small patches of woodland, more reservoirs, and that was all funded. But it was so popular, they ran out of money, and then they stopped. I mean, it was just bonkers. So there it was, an actual scheme for environmentalism funded by the government, and they decided to stop it. And public money for public goods is another brilliant one, I think. That could change the face of our countryside. I mean, actually, what was he called? Gove. He was actually pretty good on this shit. He just had no follow through. And over again, that happens. So lobbying. So we need to get rid of the lobbyists. And we're back to the supermarkets. The most straightforward thing at public money for public goods is to nationalise the supermarkets, take control of them, and then we would actually control our food system entirely.
That's hard even to imagine. Wow. Can we tackle that? Wow, that's a big.
We could start by setting the supermarkets a load of targets like we have the water companies, because the water companies could be nationalised overnight, and God knows what's making the government.
I can't believe it, but only yesterday I was in a supermarket and I was reflecting for a moment when I couldn't find a plastic bag because I'd forgotten mine. How great it was that isn't the default anymore, and we did kind of course correct around that. You're exactly right, and actually we slightly quizzified this, what we're talking about now, in a previous episode of Funny Old World, when I'd asked the question, which was, what do you think the most influential factors are? Are they education, policy, government, or is it incentivizing people? Or is it the effect of what our peers do? And actually, in terms of this particular behavioral science report, it did say we do what we see other people do. And that's why I think hospitality is so powerful, because we see other people. We're in environments where we're seeing what other people choose. So choosing the bull in makes us feel good. We see other people appreciating that. I really see it in action there. And also because people tend to share on social media a lot to do with their travel experiences. So I think there's real opportunity there to feed them opportunities to say, hey, I've made this choice, I do it this way. Sorry. So that was my thought. Now, you've touched upon solutions, Ed. What would you say is another, what are the other solutions around what you're talking about?
I think that there's a big communication problem in government with how people are scared to communicate environmental problems in a way that isn't polarizing. And I think there needs to be a big rethink around how people, especially on the left, communicate environmental problems that don't shame people for making decisions because they can't afford to, that don't, antagonize certain people in big businesses. Because at the end of the day, we need everyone to come together, and we need to, we need a united solution. Otherwise, we're not going to get anywhere. So one solution that I've always thought of, which I've never seen in practice, is going back to a much more traditional way of talking about the environment. In America during the 1800s and early 1900s, it was the right-wing Republicans that were really the ones that funded all of the national parks and the creating of these amazing environmental spaces, because the environment was about their land and their country, and it was about, looking after something that was inherently theirs. And I think if we can slightly change the rhetoric to people, it being a patriotic act to farm in a way that gives a 100-year future to our farmlands. It's a patriotic act to plant trees and do things that have been really kind of pigeonholed as being like hippie or what people in the Green Party would do. So I think there's definitely scope to change the way that we communicate environmental problems to include a much broader a broader tribe, because at the moment, as we know, across the world, environmental problems are becoming more and more polarized.
So if we have lots of international people listening now, let's say, and you've touched upon, topics which are particularly relevant to the UK on a global level, do you see any examples of challenges where this is being tackled in a really responsible, inspiring way? Are there any countries doing it right?
There's lots of countries doing really interesting things. Denmark has organic food everywhere. I mean, because it's government policy, it's just built into their system and it has been for so long in all the kind of food boards I've been involved in. And I can't deeply analyze Denmark, but they relentlessly impress me in how they think about their food system. France had a policy to increase the amount of organic land. It was very, very effective, but I know the organic market is struggling. It's struggling to sell into. There's not enough trade there for them. So then something else needs to shift a bit, doesn't it, to facilitate organic farmers to be able to sell at in the same way, at the same price, maybe, so maybe you get some kind of environmental funding because you are actually not polluting the rivers. You are not polluting the seas. We're not having to clear up after you. So therefore, you're supporting the bees and all the things that agriculture needs. So therefore, you get government funded. Oh, so simple. I mean, just tax the rich and make them bloody pay for this so everyone can eat decent food. It all seems really simple to me.
There are places I've been to as well where because they've just been farming in a way with land that's not been interfered with ever. They may not have the certifications, or certainly in Costa Rica, I remember the conversation, and Ecuador as well. Do you know about that, Ed?
Well, I think that there's in Europe, because of the common agriculture policy, we got ourselves into a bit of a mess with how farmers became so reliant on subsidies, where there are places all over the world where they never had subsidy systems. And when you don't have subsidy systems, then the way that people manage land is much more natural because it hasn't been subject to some strange interventions. So I've got some farmer friends in the UK who, when we left the common agriculture policy, even though, as Geetie said, there was some pretty progressive signs with the elms and public money for public goods, people were saying, why don't we, instead of spending money on that, why don't we subsidize a transitional period into a place where we don't have subsidies, and then we'll have a more natural farming system where farms will have to be profitable, and then they'll have to be working with the land, and they'll have to have healthy soil in order to maintain their farm for generations. But yeah, there's examples of that all over the world. It's just it becomes a problem with, if you piss off the farming community in the UK, it's quite hard to get re-elected because farmers all over the country have got quite a lot of, even though it's quite a small percentage of people, every election, what the farmers think comes up because they're producing for the country and they've got a very, they've got an important role to play in the future of the country. So I think governments are terrified of putting in policies that are that radical, like getting rid of subsidies, in fear of really pissing off the farming community. But like many things, it's gonna take some radical change to bring about proper change.
Here we are with the farming community sinking, and no one points a finger at the supermarkets, the ones who don't pay them. It's just extraordinary. I have actually had an argument with my local MP about it, where we've pretty much fallen out, because I just think, why are we talking about anything other than how farmers are paid and how little they get for what they produce? It's less than 5%. I can't remember what it is. It's absolutely minute for what they get for their ingredients. And then there's all these people in between who make loads of money. I buy directly off farmers. It's always been my policy. The money's going straight to them, not to the middle person. But yeah, I agree with you about subsidies. It's a complete fuck up. But I think ultimately it comes down to a food system that is not supporting farmers being paid properly. And if they were going directly into the high street, into smaller shops, if we had a delivery system that could support small market gardeners, we've got rid of our abattoirs, we've got rid of our local food delivery hubs. We've broken the system that allows small market gardeners, farmers to be part of the system. If it wasn't for people like Riverford, there'd be nothing left.
You mean industrialization overall?
Yeah, but industrialized control over farming as well. And the amount of waste they create, the amount of demands they put on people. Riverford guarantees that it will buy 90% of what you produce. It absolutely guarantees it, no matter what happens. it will deal with it. Sometimes they give it to charity, but they've made a commitment to the farmers. So those farmers are actually profitable, healthy, comfortable farmers. It's still not easy because they're still fighting this food system. But why don't people spend more money on food? I mean, we're down to what, Ed, you're full of facts. Is it about 12% the UK spend, whereas in Europe we're on about 30% of their income is spent on food? But that's because accommodation is so unaffordable. If we could deal with that, accommodation isn't doing anything for the planet. I mean, deal with our energy problems, so insulate homes and then make accommodation affordable, and then people could support an environmental food system in Britain that would give us our wildlife. I woke up the other morning at dawn and just thought, I literally put my hands in my ears because the dawn chorus is, I mean, I feel like Rachel Carson's Silent Spring is upon us. It's so quiet, and I am surrounded by hundreds and hundreds of acres of organic farmland.
I will counter that and say I was in Suffolk the other day with someone who said this used to be quiet for me growing up as a child because there were so many chemicals in agriculture. And we opened up the Merlin app and we counted 20 species of bird in. So just offering a little yin to your yang.
But it can change is what that's saying, but it's not changing because we're 70% depleted in our birds. So, we know that's not happening, but it can, and it could change so fast. It just takes the government to bloody do something about it. Where is their motive to save our planet? It's because...
Well, that's what I was going to say, Juliet, about hope, is that, nature is incredibly resilient and can change very quickly if the right things are done. I've been doing a lot of work down in southern Italy, as you know, and 20 million olive trees have been killed by this disease. And there's no cure to it. Lots of Italian universities are drastically trying to find a way to save the other 60 million because it's rapidly spreading north. And at the beginning of right on the southern tip of Puglia, some of the dead olive trees are starting to come back to life. And they've managed to find a way through no human intervention to having, been around for some of these olive trees, been around for 1,000 years. They died 10 years ago, and they found a way to regenerate. So there's really, it's important to realize that nature will be here long after we're gone, and we'll find a way to regenerate. We just need to find it. We just need to find a way for it to regenerate while we're here.
Well, near us is a mussel farm, and so mussel farms have very low intervention. They just drop ropes. You come out, you pull them out, you pull the mussels off, and off you go again. Nice and simple. They self-populate, I think that's the word. But because of the mussel farm, it's a marine reserve, and the fishers are actually being quite quiet about it. They're not really talking to each other about what the abundance is on the edge of the mussel farm. And Plymouth Uni is monitoring it, and they're just blown away by what's happened to the bottom of the beds, which were decimated by scallop dredging, and it's all reviving and all coming back. And if we put aside half of the oceans to marine reserves, we would be abundant in fish. It's so bonkers. I don't think the same quite happens on land, but the oceans are so logical because they just start spreading out. They just move across.
Great. Well, we definitely needed that. Well, from farm policy and oceans and hope, key change to
porn.
Only farms. To porn, Geetie.
Well, it's one of the really fun things about my business. It's one of the things I bloody love. And one of the reasons why I'm definitely never going to be a politician, because you just don't get to do this in politics. But we were having a conversation about porn at one of our managers' meetings, and we all decided, ultimately it's just offensive, abusive, it's damaging women. So we were like, it doesn't matter if it's ethical, it doesn't matter. We can't navigate this. We can't navigate if that porn is really ethical. We're just blocking it on our internet. So you cannot watch porn in my pub anymore. We haven't actually done a campaign on it yet, but we are about to. But there is erotic literature in your bedrooms. And there's nothing wrong with having a little play with naughty eroticness. That's beautiful. That's what we need to get back to. We need to be liberated sexually, don't we, in a beautiful way where we can just be consensual and gorgeous and not threatening and intimidating, and learn to talk about sex properly, which we could do now if you want.
So what a note to end on. That's giving us all hope. Huge thanks to Geetie and to Ed. And that's Funny Old World for today. If that gave you a little bit of hope and inspiration, or it made you think a bit more deeply and you think someone else might benefit from hearing from this, please do share it, review it, and subscribe. It does help us find more heroes worth hearing from. And a huge thank you to my old podcast partner, now producer John Weeks. And of course, to this episode's sponsors, The Long Run. Much loved in the travel industry for shining a light on the businesses that believe nature and people should always come first. Find out more at thelongrun.org.